Well, you're right to raise it, and you're right to call it a stranglehold. It is said that in the last Parliament, 80% of the Conservative MPs belong to Conservative Friends of Israel. The present Foreign Secretary, who's been uttering smooth but weasel words about the assault on the people on the Marmara, joined the Conservative Friends of Israel at the age of 15. Did you know that? He made this speech, which was widely broadcast, sort of very adolescent, seemingly rather naive and very unusual. You might say a nerd. Age 15, in the same year he joined the Conservative Friends of Israel. Now, what drives a youth of 15 to join the Friends of Israel? We've tried to tackle this. Stuart Littlewood and about 15 others of us wrote to the committee. It's a laughable title, really. Committee for the Standards in Public Life. The man's now called Kelly, is Sir Kelly, ex-Mandarin, who's the chairman. And we wrote, I think 3 years ago now, to try and take action on this. We were brushed off in the way that they're rather good at, belittling you, misspellings, things like that. But we raised this matter. We studied it, and we found that there was hardly a senior minister in the New Labour government, inverted commas government, who were not Friends of Israel. And we thought it likely that you could not get a good ministerial post without being a friend. Liberal Democrats are the same. In fact, they were the first to start such an organisation. And if you look at their website, it's a rather amateurish affair, but it actually is treason. What they're considering the welfare of another country as being equivalent to our own. Now you know that a member of Parliament has to consider the welfare of his own country first and foremost. But these people are not doing that, and they are all committing treason. And you remember that treason in olden times was rewarded by being clapped up in the Tower of London and sometimes losing your head. But we've lost our principles and we've lost our sense of direction. And the idea is now that you have to talk about the security of the state of Israel, and it is more important for the person uttering that the security of David Halpin, who served his country in the health service loyally and arduously and truthfully, but they're more concerned about dealing with an invention, really, a cuckoo in the Middle Eastern nest, which has caused the most terrible suffering in Palestine and in the states around, as designed. Empires thrive on chaos, as you know, and Israel is a wonderful way of causing chaos in the Middle East, as it has done. Now, what do we do about that? Well, we speak about it. I think it's becoming more obvious. Peter Oborn produced that Channel 4 program. Did you see it? On this subject. Rather surprising, because we'd written to him before it, as it happened. Perhaps we helped to trigger it, rather. But he produced a pretty good program. It was blunted a bit, but it showed how venal the connections were, how the funding of political parties came quite often from Zionist supporters, like, say, Lord Sainsbury. I can remember this. I could quote quite a few, actually. You remember Lord Levi, who went around as the bag carrier for Blair and was largely responsible with Mandelson for the election of Blair's government, the Blair government. And that was a lot to do with money, because money buys you advertising so that people with empty brains take it in. And that's how it works. And that's why Obama, who has all the skills of the neuro-linguistic skills of Hitler, that's why he, who was chosen early, in fact, by the Zionists to be a future leader, that's why he had $760 million for his election campaign. And some of that was small donations, a lot of it was large donations as well. So this is another ill of our system, apart from party politics, which is ill in itself, I believe. People should be standing up as individuals, men and women, of skill and principle, of known principle. But that's how it works. $760 million to elect Obama on a peace ticket, and he's put 100,000 troops, isn't he, or something like that, into Afghanistan, and there's the same number of troops in Iraq still. And his policies are as bloody as the previous incumbent. So what I'd like to say, I'm trying to round this up, this summary. Friends of Israel here in our parliament, very powerful indeed. Why talk about the security and something of Israel? I forget it's the formula, you keep hearing it. And the viability of Palestine. Why not the security of Palestine? It's the viability of Palestine, security of Israel. Good example of the mindset of these people. Now in America it's worse than that. America actually dances to the Israeli tune, even though it's about 5 million people, 5 million Israeli Jews in Israel, in the Zionist entity, and something like 16 million Jews, most of whom don't support Zionism, I'm told, in the States. But AIPAC, American Israel, I feel what the next bit stands for, JINSA, Anti-Defamation League, led by Foxman, is about 50 lobbies, Jewish lobbies in the States, not Jewish Zionist lobbies in the States. They set the pace. So if my sister sends me today links to Republican people speaking about the attack by the passengers on the Marmara on these peace-loving Israeli commandos who've come down from Apache helicopters. You understand me? But they're repeating it like tape recorders or megaphones. So over there will be what's it called now? Israel Today or something. There's a big propaganda organisation over there, but they'll be repeating this stuff like a telegraph system. Over here is BICOM, run by an ex-MP called Fitzsimmons, a lady, and very powerful they are too. And you can bet your bottom dollar they're on the phone to the BBC all the time, feeding it in, feeding the poison in, so our population is never properly informed about the misery and injustice of the people, the misery and injustice that the people in Palestine suffer, or in the countries around. They're fed poison about Iran and about Ahmadinejad wanting to obliterate Israel. But he's been produced, if you look at the transcript, I've seen, I can't read Farsi, but I've seen an elegant Farsi writer analysing the words that he used, and he did not speak about obliterating Israel, the Zionist empire. He said that it would die, and so it will. All things which have an evil basis, it has an evil basis, because of its exclusivity, that these things that have an evil basis do die. No question about that. I mentioned, in fact, I said, and I believe this actually, that the American policy is driven more by Israel than the policy of Israel is driven by America. Just as, although there's no doubt about it, that UK policy is driven by the US. But people may probably know that over $2 billion is given in aid to Israel by the US every year. In fact, they just made an extra donation. Now I leave that, that's something to do with Afghanistan, I think. But you have to consider also there is massive private donation flowing from America into Israel as well to fund the settlements and things like that. But when we say this, we need to remember too that of the foreign aid dished out by America since the war, 1/3 has gone to Israel. This tiny part of the world and a tiny population, consider all other needs in Africa and elsewhere, 1/3 of all foreign aid Then there's the private aid,